Getting Riftbound product at the moment is, well, it's not easy. So this means at the moment, you may be operating with whatever you can get your hands on. A starter deck or two, maybe a dozen booster packs, maybe you swap some cards here or there with friends, but you definitely don't have 3 copies of Dazzling Aurora or Thousand Tail Watcher. But that's okay. And today here at Arcane Academy, we're going to tell you why. While the release of Riftbound has brought with it an astounding amount of excitement about the game, it has also seen supply struggle to keep up with demand. Quite simply, there aren't enough cards and booster packs to go around in these early stages of the game. Riot Games has already said they're committing to getting a second run of Origins out before the end of the year, but this can leave you, the player, frustrated that you can't get the cards that you want. Well, the good news is that many of the best cards in Riftbound are actually lowly commons and uncommons. In common trading card game vernacular, we refer to these cards as staples, cards that you must have if you're looking to be even a semi-serious Riftbound player. They are often the best in slot options for each color, and cards you'll go back to time and time again as you build various decks for various legends. Think of these cards like your utility belt, because they will be your primary Riftbound tools both now and in the future. Today, here on Arcane Academy, we'll be going over 4 cards from each domain that are must-haves for your collection. A 2-drop, a combat trick, a removal spell, and a wild card for each color. And the best part is, with all of these cards being commons or uncommons, they're all relatively cheap and easy to get, with most costing less than $1. And if you're looking for the best place to buy these singles and more, check out our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com. 49 cents for a charm, 99 cents for a Ravenbloom student. You can fill out all the holes in your collection and be ready to build a ton of decks using promo code ARCANE for 5% off your order at CoolStuffInc.com. If you were to buy complete playsets of all 25 cards in this video, you would spend less money than the cost of a single time warp. And at the time of recording, most of them are in stock too. So let's dive right in. Fury. Starting in Fury, we'll begin with perhaps the most tame of all the 2-drops we'll talk about today, but one that is specifically good against the most popular legend in Riftbound, Kaisa. Pouty Poro does not have a lot of intrinsic power. Its ability won't be relevant against half the players in the field, but against decks full of removal like Falling Star, Hextech Ray, Acathian Rain, and other spells that want to target your units, Pouty Poro fills an admirable role. All of these removal spells already cost your opponent power, so tacking on another power cost is a great way to run them out of resources. However, it's important to note that Pouty Poro's role is somewhat specialized. It's not a great card overall, and will likely be surpassed in the future. Fury's combat trick is understandably aggressive, as Cleave is as cheap as they come at only a single energy, and offers a huge bonus of +3 might on offense, enough to break through all but the strongest of defenses. Any trick that costs only 1 energy is huge, as it's very easy to find a spare energy here or there and still be able to play everything else you want to play in a turn. If you're attacking and looking to break through, Cleave is awesome. However, note the downsides. Cleave is naturally only good on offense, but also only works if you are starting a combat showdown against enemy units. If you are moving to an empty battlefield, which starts a non-combat showdown, even though you are threatening to conquer it, you aren't technically attacking. This means that Cleave cannot save you against damage-based removal like Hextech Ray or Voidseeker. Cleave also suffers against bounce or pushback effects like Gust and Fight or Flight, as well as any sort of stun effect. The end result is that Cleave just does one thing, but it does it very, very well. On the removal side of things, Fury shines with a ton of great damage-based removal. At the top of the list is Voidseeker, dealing a very healthy 4 damage for 3 energy and 1 power, but most importantly, drawing a card in the process too. Being able to interact in combat at action speed, replacing itself and killing most early and mid-game units, Voidseeker is a top removal option. Charge! While Fury may have one of the weaker 2-drops of all the domains, it has one of the best 2-drops in Noxious Hopeful. 4 might for 2 energy is an astounding deal, and if your deck is built correctly, the Noxious Hopeful is going to cost 2 energy most of the time. Noxious Hopeful may look like it's just a Darius card, but you'd be hard-pressed to find a Fury deck that isn't at least interested in Noxious Hopeful. Whether you're tricking Legion with Hextech Ray, Stupefy, Stack Deck, Seal of Unity, or just another 2-drop, you're always getting a phenomenal deal on Noxious Hopeful, and Volibear is really the only legend that would not want to consider this card. Calm. Moving on to Calm, we come upon some of the best spells in the game, but first up is just a little guy. Stalwart Poro may not look like much, but numbers are numbers, and your 2-drop being able to get in, score, and not feel reprisal from other 2-drops is actually much better than it looks. Add this in with other pump effects from spells, or from legends like Master Yi or Lee Sin, and you've got a stalwart little 2-drop across almost all the Calm archetypes. For Calm's pump spell, we have the ridiculous Discipline. Any card that does something and draws a card always warrants a second look, and 2 might for 2 energy is certainly above board. With Riftbound being so combat focused, Discipline does it all. It wins you fights on offense and defense, stops removal spells, and does so at card advantage almost every time. Discipline is one of the best pump spells in the entire game.
Don't you trust me?
Calm's premier removal spell is extremely unassuming at first glance. Charm just moves an enemy unit. That's it. Takes a little to unpack, but in a game so focused on movement and unit combat, Charm can do almost anything. It could be as simple as moving a large enemy unit off a battlefield so you can score, but things start to really get wild once you start actually engaging in combat scenarios. The most common use is to pull a smaller enemy unit into a larger one you control at one of the battlefields, but this can go even deeper by breaking up a few units at one battlefield, not only to send the unit you charmed to its death, but also breaking rank so you have a more favorable attack. For just a single energy and power, Charm is as good as it gets. The only knock against Charm is its slow spell speed, but I don't even want to think about the possibilities of Charm at action or reaction speed. The only count against Charm is if you're playing a lot of small units and can't always find a good fight, but Charm is almost always going to be an all-star. No. In Calm's wildcard slot, we find one of the best counterspells in the game, Defy. Like Charm, Defy only costs a single energy and power, and also like Charm, it has the ability to completely warp a game. Defy, like counterspells in most games, is a card that gets better the better you're able to use it. Just countering a Hextech Ray or something like that is fine, but the real power here is being able to counter a key spell at just the right moment, breaking up your opponent's plans. The downside to counterspells is often the opportunity cost of having to leave up resources for a spell that may not come, but Defy is so cheap that this is almost never an issue. Be aware of Defy both in your own deck building as well as in your own games against any deck playing Calm. Mind. Next up is Mind, and while the Poros we've seen so far are perfectly serviceable, Mind has perhaps the best 2-drop in the entire game, Ravenbloom Student. A single spell cast puts Ravenbloom Student well above rate, and after that, the sky is the limit. Furthermore, your opponent always has to operate in the dark against Ravenbloom Student, never knowing how big it will really be. Good early, good late, Ravenbloom Student is likely close to the ceiling of what a 2-drop can be in Riftbound. Talk about a 1-2 punch. Mind's best combat trick is Stupefy, which is perfectly paired with Ravenbloom Student to make combat a nightmare for your opponent. Take everything we said in Calm about Discipline and juice it up. At only 1 energy, Stupefy is very hard to play around, is the perfect spell for Ravenbloom Student, and can even help your damage-based removal spells kill things they normally can't by effectively dealing extra damage at a super low opportunity cost. Stupefy is quietly one of the top 10 cards in the entire game, and you have to have a very good reason not to include it in your Mind deck. For Mind, the hits just keep on coming, as the removal highlight is the game-breaking Singularity.
We will all collapse into one.
If you're looking for a rare or epic level of power in an uncommon, Singularity is everything you could ever want. It's a little expensive at 6 energy and 2 power. Being able to kill 2 of your opponent's units is well worth the trouble. And the big draw to Singularity is that there is no out-of-battlefield restriction like there is with so many other removal spells. It's a little bit outclassed at the highest levels of deck building when decks have unlimited access to rares and epics, but if you're looking to improve the punch of your Mind deck, add some of these and watch your opponents groan every single time you cast one. Mine's wild card looks unassuming.
Oh, they like you.
4 energy and 1 power for a 3 might unit that just makes a token that goes away. But Sprite Mother brings a lot to the table that is not quite apparent. The first and most obvious is that Sprite Mother is essentially a removal spell on a stick. You get a 3 might unit and send your 3 might sprite in to go kill an enemy unit at a battlefield, and maybe even play a little defense if it lives. That's all well and good, but the other big consideration is that Mind is a domain with very little accelerate. Gaining access to this sort of effect in a domain that doesn't normally have it is fantastic. Once you add in potential synergy with things like Retreat, allowing you to go for another round, or utilizing the sprite token's death with something like Victor Leader, you truly unlock the full potential of the card. Do not sleep on Sprite Mother. Body. One of the most desirable qualities in a 2-drop in Riftbound is having utility beyond turn 1.
That all you got?
This is where a card like Pit Rookie comes in. Sometimes you just play Pit Rookie on turn 1. It ain't perfect, but it gets the job done. Then, if you draw Pit Rookie on literally any other turn of the game, you're likely to get 3 might worth of stats for 2 energy, and even more if you can profitably use the buff for other synergies. Pit Rookie is great. Body doesn't really get proper combat tricks, so instead we have one of the better combat-focused units in the game, First Mate.
Dead men tell my tale.
Weighing in at 3 energy and 3 might is more than reasonable, but the real draw here is how much flexibility being able to ready units on demand is. The baseline application is to ready another unit you played this turn so you can attack immediately, but even being able to attack a location and then immediately ready and move out, or move out of a location and then immediately ready to attack another location is fantastic. Body doesn't really get proper direct removal either. Man, what does Body get? As the removal it does get is based on initiating pseudo-combats like with Challenge.
They dare to challenge a god? Let them try.
This of course requires you to have a good-sized unit in play and also run some risk if your opponent is able to remove your unit, or even worse, pump their unit so it wins the combat. That all being said, Challenge is still a very solid removal spell if you're able to meet the conditions, as 2 energy and a power at action speed is a very good rate. You definitely need to meet the criteria if you want to play Challenge, but if you can, it's a solid spell. Body's wildcard's a little 2-for-1 action here, as while Body doesn't have a lot of the powerful combat or removal spells like other domains, it is the best domain by far at ramping your runes. Both Mobilized and Catalyst of Aeons can push you ahead quickly in runes, getting you set up for huge plays much earlier in the game than your opponent may be ready for. The risk of this is that because of how Riftbound works, taking turns off in the early game and giving your opponent free reign to score points can be risky, but no other color can get to high energy cards faster than Body. If that's your jam, these cards are for you. Chaos. Chaos is next, and while its overall card pool isn't as deep as Mine's is, it also has some of the best staple cards in the entire game.
What are you buying? What are you selling?
Traveling Merchant is right up there with Ravenbloom's Student as one of the best 2-drops in the game, providing incredible advantage turn over turn. Fixing your hand is great, but Traveling Merchant is able to do so much more, filling your trash, facilitating discard synergies, playing nice with move effects, and even just drawing cards straight up late in the game when you're empty-handed. You need a very good reason not to include Traveling Merchant in any Chaos deck. Like Body, Chaos doesn't really get any proper combat tricks. That does not keep it from being tricky.
Boo.
Fight or Flight reads like a charm at first glance, as it's not readily apparent what you're supposed to do with it. It can't even do the simple move your small guy into my big guy play that Charm can default to. However, Fight or Flight is a phenomenal spell, capable of so much more than you would think at first glance. You can simply push back an attacker to stop your opponent from scoring a point, but you can also break up group attacks or defends, save your own units, effectively counter a combat trick, and so much more. Fight or Flight is a clever player's best friend. Chaos doesn't really get direct removal spells either, opting for more tricky move effects like Fight or Flight or bounce spells like Gust. While Gust can't kill a unit outright, it can provide a nice tempo swing, break up a combat, or be played in response to an opponent's combat trick. It can even save your own units, allowing you to replay them and get effects again. However, the best part about Gust, despite its somewhat limited target spread, is that it is one of the few removal spells in the game that can be played at reaction speed, allowing you to respond to combat tricks, removal spells on your own creatures, and more. Not every deck wants the full set of Gust, but it's a tool that should be in every Chaos deck's arsenal. We've saved the best for last here with Chaos, as while it might not look like much,
It ain't luck, it's destiny.
Stack Deck is perhaps one of the most consistent and powerful spells in the entire game. Veterans of other card games know full well the power of cheap library manipulation and all that comes with it, and you don't get much cheaper or more powerful than Stack Deck. With no resource cards in your deck, you're looking at 3 action cards every time. The cost is super low. You're casting a spell for your Legion effects, and for things like Ravenbloom Student, you're filling your trash, and you can even find things like Nocturne. And that's to say nothing about just finding the key card for whatever situation you find yourself in. Stack Deck is the most staple card of any card mentioned today, and it would be difficult to imagine a Chaos deck that would not play a full playset. Order. Lastly, we come to Order, which has a mixed bag. Order's 2-drop of note is Soaring Scout, which is exactly fine. Getting a resource on the way out means you don't mind just throwing Soaring Scout into a battlefield to score a point, indifferent if it survives your opponent's counterattack. It has some extra value in Victor and the various sacrifice and pump effects, but Soaring Scout feels like a card that will be phased out as future sets are released and Order gets better options. For now though, it's the best Order's got, so pick it up. While not exactly a combat trick, Hidden Blade still feels more tricky than your average removal spell. The baseline function of killing your opponent's unit and letting them draw 2 cards is acceptable as long as you're killing a very high value unit, and even better if you can do something special with it in combat like kill a pumped unit or break up some sort of double attack. But it's definitely a serious cost to give your opponent free cards. There's some extra hidden value too, although there are not a lot of hidden cards in Order, so it's usually pretty clear what it is. Don't forget too, that in a pinch this can kill your own units so you can draw 2 cards, useful when you have a recruit token at a battlefield or a unit that's going to die anyway.
Call the weak!
A somewhat more straightforward removal spell is Cull the Weak, which is specifically very good in Victor or other token-based strategies. Cull the Weak is a very polarizing card, as sometimes it will be the best card in your deck, like when you have a 1 might recruit token and they have 1 huge unit, and sometimes it'll be almost unplayable. Still, even with the sharpness across matchups and in deck building, it's still a very useful tool in the right spots. Order's wild card is the fantastic Vanguard Captain,
Rally to me.
which provides a huge amount of material for only 3 energy and 1 power. Activating Legion can occasionally be a little tricky, but the payoff here is huge, even just on base rate. Once you start throwing in other effects that pump your units like Trifarian War Camp, or cards that make good use of recruit tokens like Cull the Weak, you're off to the races. It's easy to feel priced out when playing a trading card game, as games are designed to make the most desirable cards desirable and challenging to acquire, but there's so much to Riftbound available at the lower rarities. If you think we missed any key cards, please let us know in the comments. And if you're enjoying Arcane Academy, please don't be shy about hitting that subscribe button and that like button. And if you're really feeling it and want to help push the channel to a larger audience, hit that hype button. And don't forget to check out our sponsor, CoolStuffInc.com, for all the cards we talked about today. And use promo code ARCANE for 5% off your order. We'll see you next time here at Arcane Academy.